Hello everyone, my name is SleepersOfSolace, and this is our newest deck spotlight for Infinity Wars Classic. This time around we are going to be looking at the combo deck called Calling the Brute Squad. It is a 3 Purity deck featuring Overseers of Solace, Sleepers of Avarrach, and Exiles Purities. Its key component is Abandoned Symbiote, whose ability is to cause any card discarded or removed from our hand while he's on the battlefield to be played instead. Which is a very useful ability, which allows us to play multiple big characters earlier than it usually would be possible. His facilitator is Agent Coyle Divinedemonic, whose first ability allows us to discard multiple cards in a single turn, thus making the best use of our Abandoned Symbiote. Finally, our last commander is a diseased zombie, who's actually not an element of the combo proper, he is just here to allow us some early play for stall. Since our objective is to get combo elements in play, we have a couple of cards that allow us to do that early. One of them is Raise Dead, that can move Abandoned Symbiote from graveyard into our support zone. Of course it can be used on the other value characters, but using it on Symbiote is our basic strategy. And to get Abandoned Symbiotes into the graveyard, we can either discard one from hand with help of Coyle Divinedemonic, or use Splat on the command zone symbiote. It allows for a relatively early play of our key component. Once the symbiote is on the battlefield, we want to throw as many big bodies on the board as possible at once. For that purpose we are running the Brute Squad, featuring Corrupted Celestial Dragons, Torment Intruders, and Lost Knights. Lost Knights with their plunder free are particularly valuable because they allow us to refuel after playing the Brute Squad for the first time. We also run a couple of backups that will allow us to make use of our strategy in case of command zone disruption. First piece is Solace piece. It allows us to overcharge multiple cards in our hand, which combined with Abandoned Symbiote not only provides us with a good amount of healing, but also calls in the Brute Squad. And finally, classic of the discard archetypes, Vah'nash the Ritual Master. He is not as fast in discarding our hand, but his effect is strong enough to make him a decent backup in case something happens to our Coyle. We are also running a couple of smaller characters who do benefit from the combo, but mainly serve to stall the game and buy us time to pull off our main strategy. Infected Devil is a good value character. Zealous Protector with his vigilance and a large amount of health can help us survive an early rushdown with smaller characters. And finally, Bile Imp is a great value, especially if he survives till our combo, giving each member of the Brute Squad Infect in addition to their already significant effects. We are also running a couple of control effects. Mark of the Demon can either serve as a cheap removal or to increase chances of survival of one of our key components. Splat can be used to get our Abandoned Symbiote into the graveyard early, but also serves as a panic removal if we have something that we can sacrifice. This is where Infected Devil often comes in play, while giving his life for our survival. Of course, no Exiles Purity deck can do without the classics such as Spontaneous Combustion and Chaos in the Ranks. which, thanks to their Exile effect, also provide additional buffs through either Coyle or Vah'nash. And finally, Kidnapped by Demons to deal with removal-resistant characters such as avatars. We are running only 2 copies given its unique nature. Now, let's see if we can find a game and show the deck in action. And here we are playing against Ducin. Looking at his level, he's a little bit of a beginner, so it might not be the most representative matchup, but let's see what we can do. We start a hand with some of the bigger characters already, as well as a Bile Imp, who we can discard next turn to play him on turn 3 as an exile, and let's begin by throwing out our Disease Zombie and seeing whether we can remove Diseased Dead. Early pressure with Zombie is not really that important, he is here mostly just to waste enemy's time. So let's toss our Bile Imp, and then we can play him on turn 3. We are still floating 1 resource, but at this point it's not that important. It is a shame that we did not draw our Abandoned Symbiote from hand, because waiting until turn 8 might be painful, but we still have a little time until we would get into the exile range of the symbiote himself. Our opponent playing Brings Life Bypassing, ramping out, we will just play Bile Imp and continue on our merry way. If we don't draw any further plays, it is quite possible we will try to put some pressure on with Bile Imp by using Mark-on with Demon to give him +4/+4. 12/10 is a decent body, and with Infect it can give us a little bit more bang for our buck. Bloodthirsty Dead is a little bit annoying, but without Bloodthirst, 4 damage that it puts out is not that much of a concern. And we have drawn another Bile Imp, which we can once again discard with Coyle for play via Exile. Sadly, we will not get a double Infect, but it is still a value play. Early commitment of Aleta, which is slightly unusual. It does stop our aggression in its tracks, but our Imp survives without much issue. We can afford to play the Imp via Exile. We don't really have anything that we want to discard here, which is a little sad. Without either Raise Dead or Abandoned Symbiote already in play, we are slightly behind. We can drop out Spontaneous Combustion, and given the size of a Bloodthirsty Dead, throwing out one of the imps would not necessarily be the best play, but we can do a little bit of an aggression, as well as putting Zealous Protector into defense zone. He is big enough to survive hit from Bloodthirsty Death, and maybe tank a little bit of damage from Coyle, the Primal Hunter. Next turn we can play Spontaneous Combustion from Exile, giving us some options when it comes to damage. Still no sign of the second symbiote. It is one of the rare games where we have no chance of developing him in any way other than playing him hard way from the command, which we will do. Once that happens, we will have a rather terrifying amount of damage at our disposal. We will keep imps back, because next turn we will put Abandoned Symbiote into the command, into support zone, to keep it alive for turn 9, where we can discard multiple characters. Well, we have managed to stave off some of the damage we would have suffered. It is a shame that we are not going to be having initiative next turn. If we take too much damage, we can use Solace's piece instead of Divinedemonic with our Abandoned Symbiote for the purposes of discarding our hand. And since we only need one Bile Imp to ensure that every card we remove has effect, hence we will allow one Bile Imp to die. It is a sacrifice that will probably net us at least one character from the opponent's attack zone, which is something that will come in handy. None of the characters on the other side do have Unstoppable, so Diseased Zombie will serve as a chamber blocker. And this is the reason why we did not enter Abandoned Symbiote directly onto the battlefield, because it would not have survived till the next turn. Opponent probably doesn't have removal for it. We are taking some risk by not playing it with an initiative, and it might cost us the victory, but at the current board state we also have to start committing towards our winning game plan. So we will put Abandoned Symbiote into the defense zone, followed by Kidnapped by Demons against Helix Worm, and Solace's piece to give us back some HP, and put into the play 5 characters. As long as Abandoned Symbiote would have survived, Lost Knight could provide us with more fuel for Coyle Divinedemonic, but at the current junction, I think defending ourselves... No, actually let's put him into the assault zone. With Solace's piece, we hopefully will have enough HP to survive the oncoming onslaught. And this is exactly why we wished to have initiative. Well, we did not draw any of our symbiotes early enough to pull off combo safely, and now with the development of Solace's piece drawing out for our whole hand, we are quite probably dead. We can see about trying... Now we draw Abandoned Symbiote. Well, I was worried that it will not be a representative game for the deck, but we have managed to see the conditions of our loss. Such is the nature of combo decks. Sometimes the combo pieces do not come early enough to allow a victory. Well play from Dudsin, and let's hope that the next game we can show off deck slightly better. And here we are, finding ourselves in game against Jack Slater-FR. Again, a lower level player, and we see hardback suggesting it is a starter Disciples of the Dragon deck, which might make this a slightly uneven matchup. Then again, as previous game showcased, not necessarily. Let's see if we can get slightly better chance to showcase our deck. And here we have Raise Dead in our hand, which might serve with either Abandoned Symbiote or directly with Torment Intruder. Oh, we see a misplay from our opponent, playing Meditating Monk on himself, which suggests it is a newer player. With this deck, we would probably expect a Gauhan into defense zone turn 1 play from someone slightly more experienced. Also, we did use our Disease Zombie on enemy E1 Sage of Ferocity, just to have an insurance against a turn 4 activation, unless the opponent draws some way to give his Yuanshi more HP, it would kill itself. We have decided to activate Coyle on Spontaneous Combustion, just so we can play it turn 3 from our graveyard via Exile to remove whatever threats opponent might have. Here we see a Cook, which will happen to counteract the poison on Yuanshi, though it still leaves Yuanshi with lowered HP. And since our opponent seems to not be interested in playing a Gauhan, we'll see about putting some pressure out with Diseased Zombie, and in the worst case scenario it will suicide against Gauhan here. And we might be lucky, and our Spontaneous Combustion might be enough to kill Chef. Next turn we will come to a decision point whether to discard Torment Intruder on turn 4 in order to raise that turn 5. It is not the combo that we aim at with this deck, but it is also often more beneficial to develop a play that gives us a strong threat rather than hold out for the specific pre-planned combo. And we have a little luck when it comes to our combustion, no confirmed kills. We can drop a Vah'nash kind of for free. He will serve us if we happen to get a chance to play our combo, and we will use Coyle on Torment Intruder and develop him next turn with Raise Dead. And finally, the opponent does indeed play Gauhan out, but we have pulled back our Diseased Zombie because we did not need in the attack zone right now. And now our turn 5 is bringing back the Tormented Intruder, and we still do not have our Abandoned Symbiote from the deck. Looks like once again we will be on the mercy of playing him from the command zone, which is a little bit unfortunate and does not showcase the deck at its best. Let's see. We can play Tormented Intruder right here, which will kill Gauhan and deal 6 damage to the enemy health through the Tormented Intruder special ability. We are looking at certain amount of morale and health damage from the side of the Glorious Warrior, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we do not have an easy way to deal with it. We can put Zealous Protector down to save some amount of health damage, and since we are still floating a little bit of resources, we can activate Vah'nash to put Chaos in the Ranks into our graveyard, which is a potential play next turn. Sometimes it would be preferable to keep it in hand to deal with difficult enemy blockers, but at the current junction I think we can afford it. And here we see the crux of the Descendants of the Dragon starter deck. Morale play plan that includes number of characters that can deal morale damage. And we finally draw an Abandoned Symbiote when it is a little bit too late. Then again, playing the one from hand allows us to buff our other characters, as well as save some resources next turn. We can play Chaos in the Ranks just because we can afford it, and we will keep Tormented Intruder in the attack. There's no character on enemy's board that could deal enough damage to kill it, and it will give us some amount of pressure and deal damage through the morale effect. So, right now we play Abandoned Symbiote from the grave. We put back the Tormented Intruder just so we can access its ability later. And with a reasonably comfortable amount of health and morale left, we can end our turn and see if we can get a successful haul of the Brute Squad on the next turn. One of strengths of this deck's strategy is that it is possible to afford drawing the card with trading post because using either Coyle, Divinedemonic or Solace's piece to call in the cards from hand via Abandoned Symbiote lets us spend 5 resources easily to grab additional characters, hopefully. Well, Yuan's Wrath is a little tough on us, especially since it leaves Torment Intruder with single point of HP, and it seems we did not draw any additional characters, which is unfortunate. We will then do something a little bit more defensive. The opponent seems to be using most of his characters for blocking purposes, so we can afford to activate Coyle twice, to play Bile Imp first, and then Corrupted Celestial Dragon, which will also gain in fact thanks to the Bile Imp being discarded before it. And just to give ourselves a little bit more of breathing room on the morale front, we will remove the Glorious Warrior. It is perhaps not the most enticing target, but we are down nearly to half of our morale, so it might be a good decision. Sadly, with the move of Zunshan, the Resolute General, to the attack zone, our Abandoned Symbiote will die, but we are going to deal some damage back to the opponent through the Tormented Intruder, and we are lucky enough to have gained Corrupted Celestial Dragon and Bile Imp onto the board, and having the initiative and 10 points of resources, we can do a rather expensive combo of playing Abandoned Symbiote from command zone onto the board, followed up by another Corrupted Celestial Dragon. We are probably pretty safe from opponent's effects, thanks to the fact that our Corrupted Celestial Dragon did cause all cards in opponent's hand, except the one he drew at the start of the stun, to have their cost increased by 7. We can continue our pressure right now, and with multiple Corrupted Celestial Dragons, it would seem that our chances of victory are pretty decent. Birth, noting that our Corrupted Celestial Dragon does have infect, which means that the 2 defense golems will be added to our support zone at the end of the turn. Though with the amount of damage we had, it became irrelevant. Let's see if we can find one more game that will be slightly more equal. And here we are in a game against the Dasemulto. Let's see if we can get our combo going. We have an Abandoned Symbiote in hand this time around, which means that we can try to get the combo going around turn 6 or 7. It seems, looking at his command zone of triple GI deck, that we are playing against some sort of artifact-based deck. Let's see about doing something about the... Oh, either of the characters will be a good target. It's not like poison is our main source of damage. And we already see early artifacts, which signifies it's probably the Omni Tron deck. Well, at this junction, the best we can do is probably keep developing our board and try to get early symbiote. Sadly, we do not have any of the Brute Squad in hand, which means even early developed symbiote will not be as impactful as we'd like. I'm expecting Omni-Eye to come out from the command zone to provide this discounts. Well, it was a mistaken read. Well, now then we will try to slow the game down and stall the opponent with Zealous Protector and Infected Devil. Probably we will hope to draw at least one of our big targets, but for now we are in a rather difficult position. Next turn we will discard one of the Abandoned Symbiotes, and hopefully it will lead into turn 7th large play. The opponent is having a rather wide board and gathering a decent amount of buffs from the mechanism. We are still sadly not seeing a lot of large characters, and it might make sense to try and buff our Infected Devil. Then again, it will only take it up to 11 health if we buff it twice, which will be enough to survive a single attack from the Splitter robot, but then it will not block a lot of smaller characters. It is a little bit of a gamble, but let's assume that the opponent will put a smaller character in front to clear the way for his Splitter robot. We might be able to get some value from our devil here. And indeed, we are going to prevent a decent amount of damage thanks to the Max of Demon, as well as the buff provided by Vah'nash. We are still under some amount of pressure, especially thanks to the buffs the opponent is receiving from the mechanism, but we can slowly start getting back into the game with the use of the Abandoned Symbiote. We also still have the Solace's piece, which might be a way to try and get back. So far we are able to put a second Vah'nash and second Symbiote into play with our first Symbiote, which is not terrible but somewhat less than optimal. Ah yes, we are looking at the very wide play from the opponent, and the artifacts are starting to accumulate, which is not very good for us. I fear we are going to be forced to play a rather aggressive line here and try to get a little bit of a race. We will activate Vah'nash and Coyle. Only I will die after this turn, sadly having given the opponent enough value, and we don't really have good cards to oppose the play here. We can try to use Chaos in the ranks in order to buy us an additional turn and see what we can draw into. One good thing about our opponent's current setup is that there are few removal cards that can make it so that we don't get to play our Abandoned Symbiote ability despite not having initiative. Pretty much only the laser cannon is a threat, and it is not the most commonly played card. Then again, in triple GI Purity, it might be something that stifles our current plan. And as you can see, the opponent is trying to get War Machine out, which we will probably have to kidnap by demons, which is not the most optimal way of dealing with that. We have managed to reduce the damage we are going to be taking, but that is not putting us in good enough situation. And honestly, we are looking at a very difficult play right now. We are lacking quite a bit in the question of large characters to summon down with Abandoned Symbiote, and against the amount of wide pressure the opponent has mastered, I am afraid we might not be able to carry the day. Spontaneous Combustion showed up a little late for the current matchup. With the amount of characters the opponent has developed, it is quite possibly going to deal little to no actual damage due to how diluted its effect will become. Small mercies, the opponent is playing relatively slowly, which still gives us some small chance of trying to scrape our way back into the game, though it is getting steadily lesser by the minute. And we drew 0 additional characters this time around, which puts us in a very bad spot. And with Omnimind, we are probably going to be seeing Omnitron quite soon. It should be down to 11 cost, and I'm pretty certain we will be seeing another artifact. This also lets our opponent buff his all board by +4/+4 each turn, which we cannot match. I am afraid this is another loss for our today's recording. Rather unfortunate, we never get to do the proper combo. We either got stuck with large characters without symbiotes or symbiotes without large characters. I suppose I will have to revisit the deck at some point, but the match is still not over. Let's see if Dasamulto can put down the final touches. I see that he's playing rather defensively so far, which is understandable, and given the board control he has gathered, there is no rush to take care of us. Slowly but surely we will succumb to the pressure that is being put out. And still nothing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, at this point there's nothing to it but to throw down the gloves. This game is beyond chances of winning. I am sorry for disappointing you when it comes to showcasing the strengths of the deck, but in the interest of honesty, I am going to post even those games with intent to return to the calling the Goon Squad at a later date and hopefully showing it from the better angle.